I'm in Southern California, a little bit inland, and I've got citrus trees all around my property that I want to get ready for springtime. I've got in-ground trees, I've got potted trees of all different sizes and shapes. And so today I'm going to go through and get these things ready for a strong spring growing season. I'm going to do a variety of different things to get these trees ready, a little different depending on if they're in-ground trees or potted, and yeah, let's get going. All right, let's start with the Valencia orange and the ruby red grapefruit. These are mature in-ground trees, and the mulch underneath has decomposed pretty thoroughly already. And I'm actually going to put down a fresh batch of compost and don't want to bury a bunch of woody material underneath it. Decomposition takes oxygen and nitrogen, so I don't want to slow down the rate of decomposition and tie up nitrogen. Now it's time to fertilize. I've got some citrus tone here in this beautiful garbage bag thanks to some critters that decided to destroy the original bag. There are instructions on the bag, whichever fertilizer you're using. It'll usually say something about how big is your tree, and that'll affect how much fertilizer you can use. This thing is pretty mature, and I pretty much never measure. I just take handfuls, spread it around, and it does really well. It's not going to get over fertilized, or you're not going to burn the roots or make this plant sick, because this is a slow release fertilizer. The bugs have to eat it. It has to break down in the soil. So take a handful, just spread it around. You don't actually need a citrus-based fertilizer. Most fertilizers will work just fine. This one is specially formulated, I guess, but you can just use something with a similar NPK ratio, and I'm sure you'll be fine. Also, work it into the soil. You don't have to do that, especially if you're going to cover it, but I think it helps. Helps make sure you don't water it away or anything like that. So be crazy like me and do everything. Next step is getting that compost down. I ordered a huge batch of compost, but if you're not going that route, a really solid thing you can do is get bags of composted chicken manure. That stuff is like gold, and it's pretty cheap at almost every department store. All right, last thing for today was going to be updating that irrigation. Just trying to get a steady drip all around. All right, it's the next day. I'm actually doing a pretty major overhaul of my front, side, and backyard. And a part of that is I wanted to regrade this area, and that's why I only put a little bit of compost down the day before. I didn't want to have to, put it all over the area and then dig it right back up. So here I am cleaning this out, then throwing more compost down. A good rule of thumb is to get 2 to 3 inches down. So went ahead and did that. Had to lift up the irrigation a little bit as well. And finally, mulch. I got a bark mulch, something a little more decorative, something that won't break down nearly as fast. That's kind of become the bane of my existence at this point, is replacing mulch. So I got this. It's got good color to the core. And it's important to put down mulch because it helps keep the soil cool during the hot summer, helps lower the amount of water that you need, keeps the plants a little bit more insulated, and that usually also helps promote more beneficial life and microorganisms hanging out and making the soil a more hospitable place for these trees. Last but not least, we're treating the trees, and for that I'm using a horticultural oil. Make sure you read the label and instructions. Sometimes they have different uses for different areas, so depending on where you're at, just go ahead and read. Never hurts. Reason I'm doing this is because last year these trees got absolutely hammered by pests. So by doing this early in the season, I'm hoping to get some of the overwintering bugs to, let's say, not re-alive themselves and hopefully limit pest pressure this coming year. You may notice that I'm actually spraying the undersides of the leaves and the branches more than anything. There's 2 reasons for that. One is that most of the pests are on the underside of things, and the other is you're still kind of getting the top anyway, because as you're spraying up from the inside, eventually that mist is falling right back down onto something else, and that's going to be the top side. So yeah, spray the underside. Here's a Meyer lemon tree. It's put on quite a bit of growth. We got a thicker stem this year than last year, noticeably so. But we want to give it some new life. It is in a pot, so it's draining a lot of its nutrients every time it gets watered, and we definitely need to replenish. So first things first, we are going to get rid of these weeds because you don't want anything competing for the nutrients. I'm going to get rid of this mulch too. As we get rid of this mulch, you see how far this settled last year. Maybe used a little too much organic material, but that's fine. We can repot this. Before I knock this over, actually, I'm gonna pull these last Meyer lemons. Look at these, friggin' huge. When taking a plant out of its pot, you gotta find that middle ground of being aggressive enough to actually be able to get it out, but gentle enough to not really damage parts of the tree. All right, that should do it. Pay extra attention to the base of the pot because that's usually the part that's the hardest to get loose, and you don't want to pull or rip some of your roots out. Since the tree's out, I am going to tease these roots to give them just a little more room to come out and hopefully have them circle just a little less. Citrus roots are some of the easiest roots to work with, and that's because they're not really all that fragile. You can really move these things around and even untangle them. I've got this mix I made for a different plant. This is perlite, cocoa coir, sphagnum peat moss, sand, a little bit of charcoal, and I'm going to mix that in with some of this soil that was already in there. Let's try and get this back in here. All right, that's looking quite a bit better. Do a little test, see where that root flare is right there. And that's gonna leave us just about the right amount for some mulch. I'm gonna start throwing in some of this citrus tone. All right, we're sitting much higher, and I just want to get this to settle just a little bit. Get some of that soil to go down, fill in the sides. I'm going to throw a little more fertilizer, some soil acidifier, which is really good for plants like lemon trees, which prefer a little more acidic soil, especially when the water that we have here is so alkaline. So we're going to throw a little bit in there. All right, that's looking pretty good. So now it's about time to throw some Osmocote on there. This is just a slow release fertilizer that's not organic, but it doesn't require anything to eat it in order for it to help these plants. So it just kind of slowly dissolves with the water. Golden. And there you have it, folks. A beautiful repotting of this Meyer lemon tree. Just gotta move it in the right spot, water it in, and move on with our lives. If you enjoyed this video, check back another time. I'm doing tons more stuff around the garden, tons of fruit tree things, as well as a lot of interior projects. So yeah, subscribe, and I'll see you soon.